Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The approval of minutes for regular meeting October 10th, 2017. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right. Brent, if you could just start it off, a quick update, if you may, if anything, we had a couple of things that were down like in Veto, if we could just give a swift update.
Well, really not much happened in Veto Session. The two issues that were kind of related to the county was the property.
Oh, Star.
Star. I am a star.
You are a star.
Superstar. One issue that was affecting the county would have been the 2-year property tax raise bill that was introduced in the House onto a Senate bill, an amendment, I should say. That basically passed the House. It's over in the Senate. It didn't move anything at this Veto session. It's still technically alive, but because of the dates associated with it, it'd be much harder, January, February or something, to move this type of a bill. So they might have to, if they pursue that, they might have to reintroduce it. The other one was the bill that we talked about. So I'm trying to think of the bill that
The 851?
I'm having a senior moment here. The one regarding the counties with the small cell tower. Okay, I'm back on track. And basically, the bill passed out both chambers. The small cell tower was put on hold in the Senate for a purpose of trying to come to an agreement with the Cable Association. More or less, Comcast had some last-minute issues with it. There's a local government was opposed to it. I think Will County Government League was opposed to it, along with DuPage and possibly Lake County. Some of the concerns they had were partially addressed, I think, in some of the rewrite, but it still didn't satisfy every one of them. But the big stickler was the Cable Association at the last minute came in with some concerns. So they agreed to put the bill on hold until January, hopefully to follow up with the trailer bill. So I'm not sure if that's going to impact any local government issues or not, but I'm sure that still gives them another bite at the apple. So, that was probably everything that affected us at the time. Those were two big issues that were pending. Was pretty much dominated by the session was, I wouldn't say, it wasn't that productive, and most Veto sessions aren't. There's a lot of anticipation, but nothing really moves. So that's very, sexual harassment was the one issue that was dominating the process, as we all know. So that kind of took the oxygen out of Springfield for a while. So that was kind of the focal point, and passing some legislation reflects upon that. So.
All right. Well, good. That's no big news. It's kind of good news for us. It's kind of dodged all of that. We're going to segue right into our 2018 state legislative priorities. And we had asked for our department heads to come and bring up anything that would be something that would benefit that of the county. I know I had, who had asked me if they could go right away to get to a meeting? Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Brian McDaniel from the Treasurer's Office, and I want to thank the opportunity to come up. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Two things that are in front of us. In the past, we have asked the county to mirror some legislation that we moved forward with the Treasurers Association referring to sale in errors. We're going to ask you guys not to include that language again this year. And the reason is that we're taking a different track on that, which I'll get into in a moment. One of the things that the Treasurer's Office is working on, these are two technical matters. One does revolve around sale and errors. If a tax buyer were to petition the court for a sale and error, currently they are getting the fees and such and the monies that they put into the process. And we think that that is not something they should be able to do. Reason for that is that they're filing a petition for the court to get deed. They are aware that there's an issue. So they are going in with their eyes open, so they shouldn't be able to get the fees back for that. And then the second one is, and I'm sure everyone here is aware, mobile homes are taxed differently than the land that they sit upon. Okay. Well, what happens when the land is sold at tax sale and the mobile home has taxes owed on it? Who gets it? So there's some ambiguity in the law in the Mobile Home Act that we'd like to have addressed. Basically clarifying what would happen to the mobile home tax if the property were to go to the tax sale and ultimately for deed. And I don't know what the answer is to that.
What takes precedent now?
We don't have anything. We don't know. That's the question. We would think that, obviously, the law is stronger on the land, the real estate, than it is on the vehicle, which is the way a mobile home is currently dealt with.
Yeah, I would think the hard asset, the
Correct.
long-term asset.
Correct. But what do we do with, we have a situation now in this county where the land is going to the tax sale and there's mobile home payment taxes in arrears. How do we deal with it?
You know, I know in the county assets and everything, our building's 39-year depreciation, and they have certain rules on that, but do mobile homes fall in that classification? I don't think so. So, I don't think so. So I would say that the land would probably take the precedence.
Oh, I would agree with that. I would agree, but we don't have anything that we can go back to and say other than our opinion. You know, so that's one of the things we'd love to see some clarification. Other than having the state's attorney's office tested in court and then have to get it upheld and have a conflict somewhere else, you know, it might not be a bad idea to have some because, you know, while Will County only has maybe 2,400 mobile homes in its entirety, you've got counties, especially further south, that have a tremendous amount of mobile homes. And I am certain that we're not the first ones to run into this issue. So we would appreciate that. And then,
Right.
yes.
Are you looking for some kind of legislator, a bill or something that you can, I don't know, hang your hat on, so to speak?
Well, I don't necessarily know if we're going to have, you know, we're going for something to hang our hat on, but I you know, there's nothing language specific, but the Treasurers Association is working on this issue. And, you know, if Will County wanted to take a position, Mr. Tuminello's position, that, you know, the county would, you know, be superior claim, that would be fine, and we would, you know, we would look for that. And if the county would like to put forward that legislation, we obviously would support it.
Do you know if those other counties, because I know like Kankakee County, some others, they have a lot of mobile homes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know if they have something, have you looked at a model?
Well, it sounds like this is in your association, correct?
It's in the association,
It's in the
yeah.
association.
It's
That's
in
what
the
it sounds like.
Yeah, it's in the association, but I don't know, you know.
So there already is a bill out there?
No. As with anything on lobbyists, we're not really certain exactly what's
So
going
you
to be
haven't brought
presented in
this
the
up with
final.
your association yet?
Oh, no, we have.
But they
we-
haven't moved on?
No, we don't know how they're going to move on things. We don't see how those are going. And then the final issue I wanted to get back to, and I'll just make this brief because I know there's others that need to get up here. In the sale and error language, we have been looking for clarification on basically on the county basically sells about 4,000 properties every year at the tax sale. We expect 1% of those numbers to come back to us as a sale and error. Now, sale and error doesn't mean that the treasurer's office or the county has made a mistake. It just means that there was some technical issue like a bankruptcy or some other matter that would have precluded that property from being sold. Those rules through court orders coming out of Cook County, coming out of Will County, coming out of other places have begun to cloud this issue. And so where we would have expected 40 sale and errors off of 4,000 parcels, we're on track right now this year for 200. Okay? And those judgments are costing the county a significant amount of money. We are going to run out of money at some point. It's getting to the point where the judgments that are ordered against us are now going to be more than the funds that we carry through the tax collection, through the property tax process. We will not have the funds to do that, and we don't want to be in a position to where we have to come up to the county board and ask for special appropriation, but if a judge orders us to pay something out, we will have to figure out somehow to pay that. So I just want to put that on the highlight. We've been trying to solve this issue
Did we have
for
this last year too? Did you bring this up last year?
the last 4 years. We have. And if I can be blunt, we've run out of time. We can't kick the can anymore. You will see us in next fiscal year if we can't figure out a way to deal with this.
Brent, is there a way we can, I mean, did we have,
What's your association? Is that been part of their agenda, or?
It's been twice. They brought it down in legislation. The first year it got killed. The tax buyers apparently seem to mount a better defense against it because it's taking money out of their pockets, so they're going to be obviously against it. Then the next year, we brought it forward, and the association said, oh, this will be too difficult for us to pass because we already got beat once, so we're not going to take it up again. So they probably won't take it up again at this point. And Will County is becoming one of the several problems.
It's got to be a joint effort on the county-wide to basically the association that they're speaking of kind of carries the legislative agenda. It's kind of harder for the individual county to, without their support, to kind of, so I assume you bring it up to them, your association.
We bring it up to them every time. I just don't see them bringing
well, we
this
remember
forward.
this last year.
Mhm.
So, of course, this affects all of the counties throughout the state, so I just don't know why.
I can reach out to them and see where they stand on it, what they want to do about it, but it is very helpful in a situation like this that you're not a single county trying to fight an uphill battle if your association is not behind it with the other counties and everybody's not right, especially the Clerk counties.
Right.
If this becomes a problem, throughout other areas it's identified, we would assume there'd be a little bit more support for something like this. And I'm not exactly sure why this hasn't risen to the top of their pile again, but let me find out. I'd be more than willing to
I
find
have
out.
two things real quick. What is the opposite side of the argument?
The opposite side of the argument would be in favor of the tax buyers. Okay, so those are the people that are going to be going for the deed, and they're going to basically say we've sunk in a tremendous amount of money and capital risk, and therefore that we should be protected if there's a flaw. However,
Aren't there already protections in place when you sign a mortgage and the omissions and errors?
well, the thing about it is the caveat emptor no longer applies to a tax buyer. So if you go, and this changed back in 2010, which is when we began to see the rise in the problems. And so what happens is the tax buyer doesn't have to go in and do their due diligence on a property. There might be a superior lien, there might be a bankruptcy, but the courts are sometimes allowing bankruptcies that were already disposed of before we sold it to the tax sale. Which is an error, but they're allowing it. And so we've got a wide number of issues that are involved around this, and I don't see any issue. But to give you an idea of the magnitude, the county through its tax sale process will probably collect somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 in fee structure. We've paid out $2.6 million this year.
Next year, we will run out of money.
And we will run out of money. Yeah, and
This is a problem.
Is this not an issue in other counties?
That's what you did.
it's an issue in other counties, but not to the scale that it's been in ours, and I do not know why.
'Cause I think that's some
I
of the
do not-
feedback we got back from the association, that this is not something that rises to their.
I couldn't put a finger, paint lots of broad strokes here. I don't know whether we have judges that are just taking the issue. I don't know whether it's the affirmative defense, which I think would be a good affirmative defense from the state's attorney, but, I don't know. We just get some of the most bizarre claims on sale and errors, and the first time we see it sometimes is when there's a judicial order in front of us, telling us to pay out. Cost interest. This is unrelated to sale and error, but we just negotiated a settlement on a Supreme Court case with a tax buyer where the tax buyer made the mistake on the estate. They were the ones that made this mistake. It went all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, and the justices ordered us to pay $95,000 in settlement. And we weren't even a party to the case. Now, we negotiated it down to 55, which I think was, us doing our best effort on it, but, I don't think a local judge is going to overturn the 9 Wise Roads down in Springfield.
I want to add a little tidbit.
Please.
I'm not going to give you all of my frustrations because it's been mounting for the past 5 years.
Yes.
Over the last 20 years, this fund usually took care of itself, and we had a surplus to carry us.
Normally,
Well
yes.
to carry us. The last 5 years, I don't know if these individuals have figured out a loophole, and I'm telling you, they're winning. I don't know if we're not being represented well. How are we going to court and losing, and all the other counties are winning? Where is the fault? I don't want to, I'm saying that there's a cog missing, there's something missing to where we're the only county that's being affected. Are we not being represented well in court? Are we doing something wrong? Someone needs to look at this with a microscope. They will run out of money next year. This was a fund that sustained itself for 20+ years. This is a problem, Houston. We need to, come in here.
Suzanne, so that's my thing. When you look at these 200 properties that are in sales and error, is there a common underlying factor as to what the reason is? I mean, have we done that analysis to see what's the reason that these are all going in error, and with one of the only counties having this issue? There's something that is not getting done right.
I know that Kankakee has a similar issue on the same things. Once they figure out they can do it in one county, they take it elsewhere. And Kankakee, I know, for example, is beginning to see an uptick off of the same arguments that they're making. So you're going to find all sorts of basically they're basically going in and saying, all right, well, if this particular condition arises, therefore it's the problem. Statistically, we could go back and show you, a curve, I suppose, on these particular claimants, but quite frankly, it's a gunshot. They're taking anything they can figure out as an error and claiming it as an error and getting a judicial order that it was an error. And I wish, if there's anything that keeps the treasurer's office up at night, quite frankly, it's this one particular issue.
So
Yeah, and
so what are some of the things they're saying, claiming it as an error?
Well, the bankruptcies are usually the ones that, are the ones that we first noticed. So a bankruptcy is a legitimate reason to have a property held back from the sale, okay? And so, but what happens is let's say a property goes into bankruptcy in 2010, and they resolve that bankruptcy in 2011 or 2012, and the court says, the bankruptcy court says, you are done. You have resolved this issue, it is no longer in bankruptcy, and the case is disposed. Then the taxes don't get paid in 2016. We take it to tax sale in 2017, we sell it at the tax sale. The buyer then goes back and says, well, there was a bankruptcy. And the courts are saying, yeah, there was.
The bankruptcy doesn't allow you to never pay taxes.
Right, the banks are paying.
I know that. Yes, sir, you're correct.
The banks are paying.
We read too obvious.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, you're correct, absolutely.
You've been right so far all morning.
Yeah. Bat and 1,000 on this.
So if the banks typically pay that tax for the property, right?
Well, I mean, that's assuming that I don't know what this, I mean, it depends on the settlements.
Okay,
Well, it
so-
depends on who owns the house, who owns the land.
Well, we clearly have an issue that we need to kind of delve in a little bit deeper.
Correct, and I
figure
don't want to
out.
make this the forum for that. I
No,
apologize.
right, and that's where I would like to, where we can gather more information,
Mhm.
and we can get this of what we can do. We can maybe do on a little bit of a side note between now and.
Yeah, we've done some statistical analysis we provided to the county board and other things like that. So I mean, we've got numbers that may not include this year, but we've got some very relevant, timely data on what's
I also
going on.
think they should put together something and present it also to the finance committee. I think the finance committee needs to understand that this could be
That's
coming
good.
down the pipeline, and we need to be prepared for this.
I think
Yeah.
the problem too is, we don't have jurisdiction in bankruptcy, as we all know, that's federal. But maybe, these attorneys or the parties that are involved in these bankruptcy, we're not being put on the service list.
Well, bankruptcy,
So-
and I just want to say bankruptcy is just one of many.
Right, exactly.
Other
But I'm
reasons
just
do
saying
have
for that,
jurisdiction.
so we don't know if these bankruptcies are going on, because we're not given notice when these proceedings and So
Yeah.
to me, that's just
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah, that's fine, but we can put it on finance. Okay, all right. I appreciate your time this
Oh,
morning.
yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
thank you so much. Okay. We're gonna look, and I don't see our state's attorney. Is Jim in there?
Yes.
Oh,
One.
is he here? Yeah, he wants to come, yeah, I'm sure he's.
Morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm here on behalf of Suzanne Hart, who's the crusader for animals in Oak County.
We have something so great.
We've got a couple of pieces of legislation. The one regarding the entry into the vehicle in emergency circumstances, I think is in pretty good form. This is not, there's a lot of states that have a law like this, that if you come upon a car in a hot parking lot and it's obvious to any human being that this dog is in extremis, this gives you the right to break the window and rescue the dog without liability. Obviously, as with everything, we're going to wind up with people doing it too early or not, paying attention to what they're doing. But in Will County, I'm not going to be out to hang people that do this if they make a mistake and go in a little early. Normally, the police are required to search for the owner before they break into the car. But again, in an emergency circumstance, if the dog's tongue is hanging out and it looks like it's taking its last breath, you can break the window and rescue the dog. So again, we all know when you go to Springfield, you make compromises to get something through. The only guy that doesn't know that is Rounder. So, I think both sides of the aisle would say that. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. 15 Republicans had to cross over to get a budget. So, anyway, but the bottom line is, every piece of legislation that I've done, sorry, I didn't mean to offend anyone.
No, you didn't.
It's,
Okay.
there's both sides
Jim.
need to learn.
Jim,
Yes.
please tell me we already have something in place like this if there's a child in the back of the car. Because if we're doing this for a dog and we don't have something
We
for
do,
a child.
I thought we did look into that, because this would be the 12th, we will be the 12th state to do this.
Yes.
And the ones, and I know others who have had this bill turned into a law, they had some, so yeah, it was
I'm
irrelevant.
sorry, yes, well, what?
It's already, like.
It would be an affirmative defense if there's a child in the car, somebody could break in.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
This, obviously, because it's an animal, we need to empower the citizenry with this statute, and I think it's common sense. I don't think we'll get a lot of resistance. We might have to tweak it a little bit, but I think it's important that the exigent circumstance aspect be in there, because if you're running around trying to find the owner or trying to call 911 or do something else and then the dog expires, that's what we want to try to avoid. You can fix a broken window, you can't fix a deceased animal. So
Because right now, if you would go and break the window and let the dog, you would be liable.
technically,
You would be,
yes.
yeah, for the car, and you could get fined.
Yeah, technically, yes. In the civil world, you would. Criminally, I'm not going to go after anybody for criminal damage to property under those circumstances, but every prosecutor could do it differently. So this just makes it across the board in the state of Illinois. So I think it's a good law.
It's just, it's a good law. It's the right thing to do.
Yes. Now, the next one this is kind of in draft form, because I think it goes, Suzanne, I think we've been a little too strident on this. Just from a standpoint of the constitutionality, I don't think we can limit a retail, pet store as strongly as we're doing here. And I had Jeff look at some other legislation with regards to the Department of Agriculture and monitoring people who breed dogs. What we're trying to do is prevent puppy mills. right? That's our main goal. And I think any normal person would want to do that because they're humane. And so I think we're going to need to at least open the door to a retail establishment having a purebred dog available if it's under strict circumstances.
Right, but we also, I thought we identified that there's no such thing as a good breeder that would sell to a pet shop. So when you
Well,
say that, it kind of goes back to that original of that, in fact, of the certification and how they're getting the papers. I know there's a pet shop in Naperville that went and adopted the Humane Society, their business plan.
Yes.
And they're doing quite swell. I mean, they're selling its only rescue dogs. And the other options as well is that there is breeder salvage where they go and they get the different breeds and they're rescued. So, you know, you have like a lag rescue. We have 15
Sure.
different ones here in the county. So that could also be of that an option.
Sure.
You know, you can have the little dachshund, you know, go ahead rescue. You can have the hunting dogs. Then they can, in fact, sell. But it would have to be, as we had looked at it, and Mark Ayers had talked, that they would have to be from the 501c3. Or there's no way in Cook County. I know we looked at that ordinance, and then as well, California went severely harsh, where they said the same thing of nothing under than a 501c3. Also another just heard we've been working with DuPage. It would be Will County and DuPage County that would be rolling this out together. And we also needed to put that where the municipalities, if need be, could go in for a vote into, we have that opt-out option.
Well, again, if you want to go this route, that's fine. You know, Brent will be our lead dog here. No pun intended. But I mean, you know, Brent can tell you if there's people that are going to be going against it, they'll speak up quickly, and then we'll know what we have to do to get something through. And you know, I just want to apologize. I didn't mean with that rounder crack to diminish anybody politically. I was just. It was supposed to be a joke and it didn't go over. Because I've been to Springfield. No, I've been to Springfield. When I wrote the legislation for forfeiture by wrongdoing, I was forced to put in something that the Supreme Court says doesn't have to be in there just to get it through. That's what you have to do sometimes. You have to really bite the bullet. And so if you're passionate about something, you get it through the first time, as Brent will tell you. You come back a couple of years later, you can move it a little farther and then a little farther. You know, I wrote the animal torture bill in 1999. It started out as a class 4. Now it's a class 3. I didn't even have to do anything. It just got bumped up because then aggravated cruelty came on the books. So it's a metamorphosis type of thing. So this is, you know, the first foray. I'm sure we're going to get some pushback, and then we'll find out what that is and how do we rationally deal with it. Because if a retail establishment can set up a situation where you could go in there and order a purebred dog through them. You follow me? In other words, we're not completely removing them from the commercial benefit of their store, because you know a lot of people don't know where to contact the breeders. I know the internet is obviously one.
Right, if anyone I've talked to, they definitely know to go and I've been interviewing people all over, but Will County, DuPage, I've been visiting breeders and talking with them. That's how I was able to educate myself, and knowing that you talk to these breeders, they said, I will have a house full of dogs way before I ever sell to one of those pet shops. And then you kind of go in and you see what the version of that of what these puppy mills. And people think puppy mills as these, they are horrific, you know, the warehouses where they're all stuck in these cages, and I'm not going to go into that because I think everyone here does know what goes on. But there's also the mass breeding of these dogs. And to go and you talk to anyone that, you know, I want a lab, of course. There's you know, you go online and you see and you meet with the family. It's almost harder to adopt a child than a dog these days with some of these breeds.
But I can tell you, you know, I have a Great Dane, and we had to travel 300 miles to go get him. Well, not everybody will do that, right? I mean, so all I'm saying is, Brent will find out real quick if there's lobbyists who'll say for the pet shops, well, how about if we carve out a niche where you can come to my pet shop and order a Great Dane, then we'll get it, because we're in the commercial business, you're not. And if you don't want to drive 300 miles, we'll get it shipped here, and then everything will be kosher, and the papers will come, that kind of thing. That way, there'll be some control over this. But
Right, but we'll
If
still
you
have
want to go forward with this, that's fine, and then, especially if the page is coming along.
Right.
And then we'll see what the pushback is, and then
It's
we'll
gonna be
address
statewide,
it.
or you can do this by
Well,
population threshold?
we were talking about originally DuPage and Will County going in conjunction, because we've been working with DuPage County Board. And then now hearing where others are talking with our association, with the county association, and they might possibly want to have this onto a statewide. That's where we're kind of getting, we can all agree, we don't want to make this
But
big
it's a-
issue.
Yeah, I mean.
Even though I'd
counties
love
over
to have this a
500,000.
state, it'd be the second state, would be amazing.
County-
You'd be more prone to being in Collar County, more probably versus the rural areas of,
Right.
Correct.
there's a tendency to not want intrusion.
They really don't have any, you know, it was interesting too, and I could be wrong on this number, and I wish I think there was only like 41 pet shops even in the state, which I was kind of surprised.
That can't be
I know, no, that was,
There's gotta be
it was
41.
very, maybe it was the Collier counties, maybe it was between the two, but it was something a lot
But
lower than
what Brett was talking about, if you take the counties over 500,000 would be Lake, DuPage, Canaan-Will, and Cook.
Right.
Okay, and so
Well, Cook
that's
already
where the
has-
density of population is the greatest, and where these problems are the greatest. When you get out in the rural areas, Fred's burned, down the streets, got what I need, and, that kind of thing, and it's a more relaxed lifestyle. And in fact, we went to Southern Illinois to get the Great Dane, and the people bred the dogs in their house. They did them litter by litter, and so they were all treated properly, but they, their house, the dogs basically ran the house. And every, and the last dog, my wife left and didn't say where she was going. She comes back, she has a Chinese crested hairless under her coat. She met the woman halfway in Bloomington, but again, it was another long drive that was only halfway. So a lot of people are not as into dogs as you are, or I might be, and so they walk into a pet shop, they don't know what to do, and they might want to rely on that local merchant to help them.
Judy?
I guess what can you do to clarify that there's a qualified, valid breeder versus a puppy mill? How is that distinction? Is there a list that you can look at? I mean, how do you know that?
That's the problem. It's apparently a lot of people breed. They'll buy 2 purebred dogs, and then they want to make some side money. Okay, and it's not really, to me, that's not a good thing. And then they don't tell the IRS how much money they made on the puppies and all that good stuff. So we'll get them with the IRS like Capone. How about that? That's funny. Come on, guys. Anyway, I'm crashing here. But yeah, the Department of Agriculture, needs to get more involved, Brent. But the state's broke. They're going to cry poor. They're going to cry they don't have agents. They can't do this. They can't do that.
They only have 6 through the state. They only have 6 through the state and 1 through the Collier County, 1 that is up here and is
Right.
working everywhere.
If we
And
could
that's,
license, if we could get licensing for breeders, now that's not onerous. If you're gonna be running a business where you're breeding live animals, you should have to be licensed. That way you'd have to comply with certain kind of housing and exercise and feeding and all that kind of stuff, which is what we want to avoid puppy mills. So maybe we're gonna find that out, once we put this out there, the people will come out of the woodwork on both sides, and we'll get the issues aired out, and then we can refine this.
Occasionally the problem, what you have to watch out is that, somebody has a hunting dog, and he wants to breed his hunting dog because he's gonna get a litter of pups, he's gonna sell a litter, because he's got a good dog. You don't wanna get to the point where you're infringing upon.
you can have 5 females per,
Okay.
yes. No, I mean, there's already laws on it. You can have 5 per
That's where you're
home.
gonna run into the
Right.
biggest pushback is, and you might wanna start this with the Collar counties where the problem is, because the more rural you get, the more.
Well, like I said, we're
they
starting
don't
this with
really
DuPage and-
believe on infringement of what they can do or not do. So, I mean.
I just wanted, just a little clarification, we're looking at the animal shelters and non-for-profit organizations, period. So there's no room for any animals bought through
That's what we we're just
for
talking about.
Okay, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering how this was drawn up without even taking that into accountability.
Well, this is, when we say rough draft, this is definitely just a rough draft, because this was
Okay.
coming out, we wanted to get the other one that he's been working on for the last couple months, and then
Okay.
of just kind of having that and looking at other ordinances and other laws that have been coming through, because like I say, California is the first state, they did that as a whole, and that's
Right.
exactly what they're doing. If they're saying it's just a 501c3, and then Cook County and Chicago also has a different ordinance, how they're going about it. So
Seems like it could be driven by the pet shop owners to have some kind of documentation when procuring the animals. If it's through a for-profit, or through a profit-oriented business, to kind of exclude the puppy mill type thing, if you could put some restrictions on their procurement side, or some licensing on that
Yeah,
side,
that's what, I
correct?
mean, yeah.
Okay.
Right, and that's what we're
Yeah.
still kind of
Okay.
looking into and talking with, and I wish, Judy, I wish I would have reached out to Doc. He was a pillar of information over at our animal control. Such a smart man, and he educated me a lot as well. I sat with him for over 3 hours explaining, and right here, he could answer all these questions. And like I said, the biggest thing that getting out of him of saying, you know, I don't know if anyone realizes that we don't have our own pound that actually sits, you know, in the property of our animal control. They're very smart how this all came about. It's outsourced throughout the county. And we do spend a good amount of dollars of having these shelter dogs coming in and then trying to get these homes. And a lot of times of what I'm learning is you get the pet shop puppies, and a lot of times they're inbred, they're having issues, they're having high vet bills, they're expensive. I mean, there's these dogs, they're buying them for $50, they're selling them to you for $1,500, and now you have this astronomical vet bill. So what happens, you look, we can't do this, so it ends up in our shelters. And now we're now taking care of these dogs, and we're trying to rehab them and kind of get them out. Not to mention on how many that we have with the agreements, and like New Lenox, Joliet Township, and all the others that we have these partnerships with, and talking with them and going out and visiting them, and you see how many of these shelter dogs that are there. So this has definitely been an issue. It's also been an impact, and it was just something, and this is how this kind of rolled forward.
As far as Will County goes, I had occasion to help 5 municipalities obtain police dogs, and I was working with Bert Badisher from Joliet. He trains like 25 different police departments' dogs every 2 months on a regular basis through Joliet. And don't laugh, but I want to form the Extraordinary League, or the League of Extraordinary Canines here in Will County, and get all of our dog handlers together into an organization, the enforcement groups like Joliet Township, and then, you know, so as you know, there's probably a dozen loosely organized grassroots groups that are out there taking care of animals that we're not tapping into. When we talk about spending money, we could turn to them as a resource to house and take some of these animals on a temporary basis if we get them all together and get them organized. And I think they'll be, you know, empowered by this and feel included finally, because they feel like outsiders. And you know, we've been working with the Humane Society, the SPCA, on a couple of criminal cases here in Will County, and it's been really cool because they've got some really talented people with a lot of expertise that they bring to the table that we don't have here in Will County. So we're looking to, you know, raise that aspect, but the grassroots solutions to the problem is the best. When you have your local citizenry that care about the animals and are willing to pitch in. So.
Well, it's the right thing to do, and if you want to look at it, if you can't look at it for the reason out of your heart of these animals, which to see these videos and see what's going on, you know, it's also that of protecting the citizens and knowing what they're getting into. A lot of people don't even realize when they get rid of these inbred dogs and
right.
the mental and physical illness that comes with a lot of times. So it's not that little puppy in the window after all.
Okay.
But, and I don't know if a lot of people realize here, Jim Glasgow has been just a champion with a lot of the animal activist bills and everything that is going on. I didn't even realize the magnitude of Will County has been very much of a leader in all of this. So.
Well, it's funny, you mentioned Dr. Schild, who's our director now. Back in '99, somebody set a cat on fire in Joliet, and I was prosecuting it, and it was a Class B misdemeanor, criminal damage to property only. There was no involvement of the living thing. So I thought, that's insane. So that's when I drafted the animal torture bill, which requires a mandatory psychiatric evaluation upon conviction, because anybody who does that is off, and they're going to move off and do other things. But I remember I was walking around Springfield, and Tom Cross was chuckling. He said, "Jim, what's with this animal bill? Make it a felony?" And so I sat there and talked to him and explained the FBI statistics about mass murderers, and he said, "Oh, you got my vote." So, and Larry Walsh sponsored that. So it just, but Schild is the guy who saved the cat's life. He was a private veterinarian, and he pro bono took this cat in, did surgery on it, and it was severely burned, but he nursed it back to health. And I just found a picture of the poor cat in my drawer. I'm a hoarder. But it's funny how you stay around in this business long enough and you keep crossing paths with people. But anyway, Dr. Schild is, I didn't catch that, but I'll Dr. Schild's a great guy. I want you to have him.
Well,
So-
and you know, with that horrific Texas, church, they found out, and I think I sent that to you, that he beat the bejesus out of the poor dog and all this other. So I thought of you immediately when you were saying that, and it does. Anyone that could do that to an animal. So
Yes.
thank you for everything that you're doing. We'll square this away.
Now we pass the mantle to Brent, and he's.
He loves this stuff.
Another log on the fire. All right, thanks.
It's the right thing. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can get the sheriff's department up here and go ahead.
So Joey's coming around or?
Good morning, everyone. David, I'm the Sheriff's Office. What we're proposing is another exemption to the UW statute that includes the county corrections officer and has identified the Illinois Police Training Act. I think ours is pretty simple. There's a federal law that was enacted in 2004, the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, and our state law is actually in conflicts with it. We're late to the game here, so this is a modification that just includes the county correctional deputies for all intents and purposes into the UW exemption.
Take a look at your hand. Can you, okay. This will increase, does this increase,
Would that increase insurance liability, or?
I don't think so, but I couldn't answer that. Yeah, the training.
The correctional officers and the liability, that would, some of them say that they're under training. They use.
No. As a matter of fact, we've talked to Greg Sullivan with the Sheriff's Office, or excuse me, the Sheriff's Association downstate, and we think that we'll have support of them as well. We talked to them last year. It's really just that the language needs to be cleaned up. The training is the same whether you're a full-time police officer, county sworn deputy, or corrections officer. It's a 40-hour training class, and it's the same requirements under the Police Training Act.
I see no problem, just we'll try to find a sponsor in the county, clear legislation that can be there. So, as long as there's no conflicting as far as training and whatnot. So,
yeah, I think that's pretty cut and dry, what we, did you have any other concerns as a state's attorney's officer?
We actually got this language from Phil Mock from the state attorney's office, so.
Oh,
We consulted them. You know, we think we're covered under the federal statute, but it's our state law that's holding us back. So we consulted with the state's attorney's office to get their opinion. They advised that this is probably the easiest way to get that done. And we also, just like Jim Glasgow said, we think that there's more that could be added down the road, but we think that this should be done right away.
yeah, no, that looks great. Thank you. Is there, so did you have, yes, she does.
everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a request for just a couple of things. Obviously, funding is always important to our agency. Anything in the way of behavioral health funding, which would be both for the chronic mentally ill as well as substance use. For example, right now there's a Senate bill out there, Senate Bill 1607, or it might be under Senate Bill 0772. From what I understand, 0772 is the amended bill, and I believe it's in rules right now. This is the prescription monitoring program, and what this will do is require physicians, for us to have a better handle on the opioids and the drugs that are being prescribed and being able to monitor that. So that's something that's very important in relation to the opioid epidemic that we're seeing right now. So that's something that we're watching. Also, any funding for sustainability for community health centers, hopefully not at the expense of public health. That's a debate that's going on right now. And of course, any prevention funding for chronic disease. Our MAP initiative and our health department has identified chronic disease as a strategic initiative. So anything in the way of prevention funding for heart health, diabetes, tobacco cessation, anything like that is extremely helpful. That's it.
1607, it shows that it was already passed in the census government.
Wonderful, okay. This was as of last week, and I honestly didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, actually, just 3 days ago.
Yeah, just
Wonderful.
passed.
Okay, scratch that.
See how good we are?
Yeah, you guys are great. Wow, that was fast.
No problem.
Thank you. You're having a good week.
Yeah, very good.
All right, well, that was easy. Next. Okay. Nancy, yes, we're gonna have, Dean, we're gonna put you as the grand finale. All right, Nancy. Okay, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I just want to take the opportunity to introduce Brett. He is the supervisor for the tax extension. Brett already covered about the tax issue, and he's also working closely with the other departments in the county, along with Reagan. And Reagan has been sending emails to all of our county board members. But I thought I'd take this opportunity. I know it's not a law that's going to be passed, but we have been working with Bert Olofsson, our attorney. Everybody deals with Bert Olofsson election laws. And he is trying to, the city of Aurora is trying to put a referendum on the ballot in the March election to determine if those high petitions for us to take over those precincts that are in the city of Aurora. This has been talked about for years and years and years. So when somebody registers that lives out in that area, the registration stays out there, but those election results are included in our county results. So on election night, I always remind our candidates that don't start celebrating until you count the state. I say that all the time, don't start celebrating. Yes, there's been a close race. Revival was one of them. That he thought, you think you lose, and then when you count in the city of Aurora and provisionals, it changed the results. So my concern with that referendum, we won't know what's going to happen until March. But my concern is that that's going to be another cost for the county, which I don't have a problem taking on those precincts, but it is going to be a huge concern for, one of the concerns I have is that more responsibilities within our office, taking on those registrations. But one of my main concerns is the city of Aurora has to have their ballots in Spanish. Right now, by census, we do not have to. So if we do this, we can't just have those precincts, those 7 precincts in, just for those ballots being in city of Aurora. We would have to determine about getting the rest of our ballots in Spanish.
See, I always thought we did have that. I thought that was the negotiation, that it was up by discretionary.
It's all about census, and right now we never meet our criteria to do it. But it's just not, you gotta remember one thing, it's just not about putting your ballots in Spanish. It's about all my training, my election judges, our signage, and we're not trained, we have to hire interpreters when we prove our ballots, to print our ballots. So I'm here just to let you know what's going on. I think it's important that I also attend finance meeting too. But I thought it would be a good opportunity because most of you deal with state laws, some of our county board members. live out in that area. And I know Darren Benefield's been talked to you, Suzanne, you and I have spoke about this years ago, and this was always a concern of ours. But we'll find out after March what's gonna happen.
So,
But-
let me understand, so if you're taking up the responsibility, they're coming back into Will County, like kind of used to be before the handstand portion is. So you'll be required, because they're still within the Aurora territory, you still have to do it.
Grant wants you to turn your mic on to say you
Oh,
can't hear.
sorry.
And you too, Nancy.
Oh, I thought it was on.
Oh,
Who wants to hear?
Here we are.
Grant, back.
I'm on now. Can you hear me?
There, start over.
So you're telling me if this referendum is on the ballot, if it goes through, and the county takes back,
Those registrations.
you would have to comply with the Aurora?
We would have to follow the law like we always do, for one thing. And if the law says that we have to take over those precincts, I am also responsible for not only worrying about the ballots, I have to worry about those polling places. I have to, the equipment, training those election judges.
No, I understand that, but the printing of ballots in Spanish.
Is that the law there?
Is that-
We don't know what the law is yet. All I saw was what was the question that was gonna be put on the ballot. And I've been working with our state's attorney already on this, it's gonna be happening. But there's more to just say we wanna take that over. It's just all these questions that we have.
So I got a question for you, Nancy. What precipitates when we have to go put another language on? Isn't a certain percentage of the
By
census?
census.
Okay, so those 7 precincts in Aurora have to have multi-language on the ballot, and they have to have that polling places, et cetera. Why would that force us into doing this countywide when it's only the 7 precincts up there?
Right. We might not have to do it, but I'm just saying, it's our concern that I have right now, I'm worrying about if it does pass.
The 7
and-
precincts probably would not meet the mandatory requirement. It's because the whole of Aurora has a huge population of Hispanics.
Right.
That drums that into it, so that's why I'm trying to figure out why.
I understand, but when you
Once
roll in those 7,
combine
you
with
should
ours,
have.
doesn't mean we're gonna meet the percentage that.
No.
Right, and another concern is if we have to implement it in the November election, so that doesn't give us much time from March to November. So none of this is really talked about, it's just all they're telling us is the question that's gonna be on the ballot. So now we have to work with our state's attorney and make sure that whatever we need to do after this is passed, how we're gonna meet it. So it's a huge, I mean, it's a worry, because they never give you any time to implement when they pass laws. They always say, let's pass laws, but then they say no funding, for one thing. And then second thing is they never give us enough time to implement it well, just like same-day registration. Poll books in a huge election that they wanted us to implement it.
Well,
But
if
it's
there's any
over with
office
now.
that has good experience in this, it'd be yours. Because this has come down on you, don't ask me.
Four or five systems I've implemented since I've been the clerk. So, but it's getting to the point where judges are, I talk to the legislators all the time, so I'm not talking behind their backs. I say leave the county clerk's office alone for a while, because we've had enough, let these elections, because we're gonna keep losing election judges if they keep passing these laws. So, and it's not easy to find. I just attended a zone meeting that we hosted at Marishka's with all the county clerks around the zone area, and they're having a terrible time finding election judges. So,
And that's a long day, and these individuals are not getting younger.
and then we have to worry about,
Who cares?
Nancy, who's putting it on the ballot?
Nobody gets
I mean,
Who's putting it on the
the
ballot?
city of Aurora.
There's an ordinance, or not ordinance, there's a petition that's being passed around to the citizens.
It's not only just affecting Will County, it's Kendall County, it's the different counties that it's gonna impact. So, but like I always do, I always feel it's important to keep everyone, especially finance too, Melissa, I always like to keep her in the loop, because she knows, and then we always work in our budgets that we have to, for 2018 in the summer, and they're still in session, so we really don't know what our costs are gonna be for our year in 2018. So I always like, when I ever see anything or hear anything, I always like to come and talk to everyone, to keep everyone in the loop, so.
So this is just something that they're taking up for a local petition to.
It's bigger than local petition.
Yeah, it's bigger.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger than local petition.
It's, yeah, but it's out there.
It's gonna,
It's probably gonna pass.
it's gonna pass.
Yeah. So, and like I always say, because they're asking what my opinion is gonna be on this, and I said, my opinion is I'm gonna follow the law. If it happens, that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I would just think that of this of being Aurora, they're coming into Will County, that they would go and follow what our laws are of what we do for all of Will County. Even though I do believe that if there is some Spanish speaking, I don't understand, I would think we would have that as well as in Joliet, and I always thought that we did change the ballots in some areas of Larry Junior's.
No, we weren't for it. I wasn't for that. I spoke to Larry Walsh Jr., and I was not for having only certain precincts with Spanish. If you're gonna do it, you have to do it right, because it was setting up my data with coding would be a disaster. So if you're gonna do it for the, and why should we, that's discriminating, that some areas you have Spanish and some areas you don't. So if we're gonna do it, we need, the same thing that there's a bill out there now about same-day registration. They made that same mistake about population. It should be, everybody should get that, deserve that right to register on election day. So we don't need to be doing that. We need to do it either all or nothing. That's why I look at it.
Well, I wouldn't mind having it back, the bill of having not every precinct to do the same day registration, to do it in a few in each.
Like I meant, that's what
Yes.
I wanted.
That's what
I didn't want all 300 precincts having same-day registrations. We could have had central areas, depending on the population of the townships. Like the larger townships, like DuPage and Joliet,
Right,
have
yes.
more. The smaller ones, we could have even combined. That's going to be the way of the future, is having not 300 polling places. You're going to have more huger precincts where people can just vote. That's coming. So
It's been coming, right? I mean,
it's been coming, but
Township went from 30 down to 20, and I could imagine.
well, when I first, we had 420 something precincts, and then I put them together because, consolidated them, because we have same-day, we have vote by mail now, that anybody can request a vote by mail ballot, and then we have our early voting, which is really taken off. And like I've always said, vote by mail, then nobody has to complain about traffic, lines, or anything. You can vote at the privacy of your kitchen table. So I'm already pushing voting for this March election too. So make sure you tell all your friends, relatives now, to request a vote by mail ballot for the March election. So, okay, I'm sorry if I went on and on about elections. I don't know how I feel about it. So, huh? Yeah, my last hurrah. No, I'm going out with my ground. I'm excited about it, but I always wanted this, Will County, when we work together, we succeed together. And especially with these elections. I mean, hey, we all got here because of elections. So we want always the integrity of our election process. And if we keep letting them register and do different things, we're losing that integrity for our county.
Those
So,
are some big shoes to fill.
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry, I took so long. Dean. Last.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we addressed a couple of things. Is that
It's on.
It's on.
Red light's on.
It's on. Yeah. There's, I don't know if you've been noticing, but we're trying to do more collection of pharmaceuticals due to the opioid crisis. And so we have a lot more police departments. And then there are some pharmacies that still do it, like Walgreens. But we really like to have more opportunities for people to get rid of their unwanted medication because of that issue. So we're looking at trying to require some product stewardship, which means pharmaceutical companies would be more responsible for those types of take-back programs. So I just wanted to let you know that you may see something next year. If you want to put it on the agenda, that's fine, that's great. There's also a sharp issue, because a lot of these places where they're collecting the pharmaceuticals, people are putting used sharps, and that's a problem. So we need a mechanism that probably should be covered as well, that collection. So anyway, I just wanted to bring up that one. I'm not sure if that's okay. The other item, electronics recycling, that bill passed, as we all kind of know, but there was a cleanup bill that recently was developed, but it was never introduced, and it had to do with antitrust laws with the manufacturers, and this is their issue, not our issue, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we should be supportive of that, because that's basically a kind of a trailer to the bill that we would support, so we could sustain these programs. So that was another thing. The supervisor of assessments, we haven't had a chance to talk to her, but on the solar farms and those kind of facilities, there's supposed to be a decision, I guess they're trying to get together and make just like wind, they have a statewide formula of doing this. And so I think it would be good to have a formula so it's not up to the whim of the project. So that was another item. And then the last thing was we still have the CCDD sites on here. I don't know if you want to keep those or not for another year, but anyway, those are my 4 items.
No, we're definitely keeping it.
Oh, okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, but we'll revise this electronic one because the bill passed, so we don't need to lobby for a bill, but we probably should make sure that it gets finished with the antitrust one.
You're square away with everything, right?
Mhm.
You have-
Yeah,
you need-
I don't know
You have
if you're
everything you
aware of
need.
that. Okay, great.
And I also just had handed out, one of the, and I apologize, I do not know that much about this. I received it, I think, Lauren and Kurt, you guys received this too from Nick yesterday. I can't even, you can go ahead and read that for your review and where you're at. But Nick unfortunately has a meeting, isn't that it? He had a meeting too.
Yeah, the St. Joe's board meeting.
Are you able to read? Did you get a copy of this? Reagan?
Yeah, I responded. It's about the cemetery association.
Bob, did you have something else that you wanted to put in?
We have 2 more things. Sorry. Good morning. This is Chris Nolan. She works in our ADF section. According to the chief's zoning letter, to explain in reference to the FOIA laws, which changed a little bit, but we still have some issues with some of the FOIAs that are coming in from some of the people who are in custody.
Today, the problem that we're running into now is we are coming into some lawsuits for getting sued for not complying with FOIA requests when we're not aware that they are a FOIA request. We get 80 to 100, 120 inmate request forms per day. If it says FOIA on it, we respond accordingly as a FOIA request. If it does not, we answer it through our other administrative process. Things are starting to now come up where they're saying, well, we meant that as a FOIA request, and how are we supposed to know that? I mean, we get requests from what kind of toilet paper we use, how much per roll it costs, which we then have to, go through the whole process. And on average, takes probably 20% of my day, and there's 3 FOIA officers in the facility. Some days I do nothing but FOIA all day long, trying to get the information. If you get an inmate that you decline or reject this request, we had a few inmates that in an 18-day period they put in 96 requests. It was a full month of work for me, and you have to. You can deny them, but you have to answer every single one of them, and you can't just answer it on the form. You have to type a form letter. And then if you deny it, it goes to the Attorney General. The Attorney General comes back, we have to then do more work. It is an exhausting process.
How many inmates do we have in
About 750 to 800.
750 to 800. And we get up to 80 of these a day.
Well, we get 80 requests a day. We can get up to 30 FOIA requests a day. I mean, it just depends.
Yeah, but the numbers are stagnant. So essentially what you're saying is, even if they only work Monday through Friday on making their FOIA request, they're every 2 weeks someone's filing a FOIA request.
And last week I had one inmate who put in, 40 requests, and that's all I did all weekend was he wrote out those requests all weekend long, and then I have to.
Do we have to have hires to do? Do we have people in the office?
3 FOIA officers.
That's all you do?
No.
Not all you do, but it
Yeah.
takes a big chunk of.
It takes a big chunk of our day, and we got new exemptions into law in August, which were great. There's new ways I can deny them, so I don't have to go searching for all this information, but they can request anything. There's different states that do it differently. An incarcerated individual can only request information that relates directly to their case or their minor children. Wisconsin is like that.
Yeah. Let me look at that. I know, I think we have an opinion. Do you have something?
I just have a comment. I have 3 or 4 of the lawsuits that we have where inmates are saying, well, I meant that as a request. The way the law is written now, it doesn't outline what a FOIA request has to be, and you can't specifically say, you can't have a form that is your FOIA form. So if we lose these cases, if these rulings go against us, which there is a chance because of the way the law is written, they may have to consider every single inmate 22 form as a FOIA, which if that happens, and one of the ladies I was talking to in the office said, some days the jail receives 150 to 250 22 forms. So if that were to happen, the sheriff's department would have to hire lots of people.
Well, I'm actually filling in for the girl she's today. She's on vacation this week, and I'm going through her 22 requests, and I have about 50 sitting on the desk from yesterday and today that I'm trying to answer.
This is a complete and utter waste of taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. And then you have to give them the first 50 copies, and then you have to tell them how much the other copies are, and then they'll request further into the, I mean, I find it really,
Well,
it's a
we
game.
did just have a conversation with Mary Tatro yesterday. We were discussing the same issue, and it, whether it's they're being inundated with it, the state's attorney is being inundated with it. I mean, you guys all know the different substantive issues that they work on, or the legal opinions for you guys. But Mary will take some days just to do that all day long. One FOIA, just to look up the information for one FOIA. But so we believe that again that this. Certain government information should be available to the public. Obviously, I think, that we've all across the board, whether it's, putting stuff on websites, we've made this information. But the problem is, there is a cost thing. Because they sometimes have to, redact information if it's a police report or children's name or something like that. But the law, we need to look. There's, I think it was this past year, I know, Mary had sent us some opinions that, they're opening it, they're expanding the FOIA, they're not tightening it. And then we get requests to the Attorney General, and she has expanded it, her opinions have expanded it. So it's not helping, whether it's the Attorney General or, I mean, the one lawsuit that you guys have, it's over an attrition label. That's garbage. It's not government information. I mean, they're asking for nutrition stuff. They're asking for menus.
Can we look at, you were saying there's other states that are tighter on this, so we don't have to recreate the wheel here. We can maybe look at what.
Wisconsin has very strict laws regarding incarcerated individuals. It's regarding only their direct case or their minor children. I mean, I just had an inmate wanted to know every lockdown that we had in a year's time.
Do you think
So
something
I
like
have-
that's going to pass Illinois? No way.
Well, we can start with them. Frank, can we look at what Wisconsin's?
I'm sorry.
I mean, we might not be able to go that severe, but if we
Exactly.
can.
But like I said, they wanted all of our lockdowns and to give them that information on why we locked down our
Oh, we
codes we
probably
use, when we use.
Yeah.
I mean, but then we have to go through and redact a year's worth of our master control logbook and only get the word lockdown. Well, what if we inadvertently give out? I mean, it's a big risk for us as well. And the safety of our facility is.
And obviously, it's a
at
problem
risk.
other than just Will County, so
Right.
it might be helpful if we,
Teamed up.
if you teamed up, reached out to your counterparts and something like that to come to basically try to figure out the abuse in the system. And it is, I'll tell, every time you deal with this
That's
issue,
how I feel about it.
with the streaming of information and the rights and blah, 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 it becomes more, it's a little bit more pushback than you realize. It seems like common sense, but it's not necessarily viewed as common sense. And different parts of General Assembly will have different opinions to this. So it's a very, but you know, this is ridiculous, you know, this type of waste of time and energy and taxpayer dollars to basically deal with this issue. And you know, people are sitting with nothing to do, they come up with a lot of ideas, and that's not unique to this situation. In any prison population, you can find a lot of, you know, a lot of stuff happens, so.
There is no more common sense.
I mean, we definitely can look at this.
Yeah, we can exempt.
So Mondays turn into a full-time job. So,
Right.
as you know, Mondays are busy, so this upcoming holiday weekend, we have 4 days. That'll be a disaster come Monday or Tuesday, so.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to look at it, because if the inmate has nothing to do.
Have we looked at this before?
I believe, I'm not as versed in FOIA as I used to be, but I believe we stopped it so they were only able to FOIA their own police reports now. Instead of FOIAing other, because what was happening in the past, they were FOIAing their cellmates' police reports to find out what the guy was in for, or sex cases, or whatever else.
They would request photos and information only in the 18 to 24 demographic. We had an inmate in Stateville asking, wanting photos of women, and we had to give it to them. We couldn't give their address, but we had to give everything else to them before the
So
attorney general.
these FOIA requests not only just touch the jail, they touch our whole department, because if they're asking for police reports, and Chris has to send it off to the records division, and as she said, we cannot just write on there denied, or we actually have to fill out a template that the attorney general has given us, basically telling us why we have denied that request, and it has to fit the criteria, or else it winds up going to the public access counselor, and we wind up sending all the information to them, and they either rule against us, or they rule for us, saying that we can't release it, or we do have to release it, so.
And we have to send them a redacted copy as well as an unredacted copy, one we would be willing to give and one we wouldn't be willing to give, and we have to stamp it all and mark it so that they don't give out the wrong one. It's a big process.
Even after that process, when the attorney general says do or don't, and then we get sued on top of it, and then the state's attorney's office will fight this. And I have probably 12, just me personally, FOIA lawsuits that we have where inmates are suing us because we didn't give them the jail's policy on how they search the cells.
Yeah, they wanted our entire policy manual.
We didn't give them copies of other people's phone call recordings or things like this, and we usually win on motions to dismiss, but it's a long process to get to that.
Well, let's look into that.
It sounds logical, this shouldn't be done. It's not as easy as it sounds, unfortunately. It just, there's gotta be some reasonable, if it's happening in other counties, I'm sure.
Can we just exclude Cook County and just kind of do it?
No, I'm sure it's Cook County.
No, I know, but if that's gonna be our fight, maybe we can eliminate that.
We could put a population threshold.
I think a population threshold would be one, or something like this.
We'll take a look
Yeah,
at it.
I think that would be, you know, we don't.
Any home rule permit. Sorry.
All right. That's okay. Bob, did you have?
I have one more issue.
You have one more.
Like I said, don't know, this is Brian Contra, he took over as jury from the original place.
Good morning. I have two issues. This kind of goes along the lines of the FOIA. I talked to Katie this morning. Under federal law, if you file 3 civil lawsuits as a detainee in our facility or any other facility, you can no longer file any lawsuits. We have certain inmates with 15 to 20 each year. And there's nothing, if we could just mirror federal law on filing lawsuits, we could stop a lot of these frivolous lawsuits from going through. I mean, I'm inundated with, when I was in civil process, the service forms. Our deputies were going out to serve all these people. It was just so time consuming, And if you read through one of these lawsuits, you'd be like, wow. So I don't know if there's something we could do. Katie did mention if we did, I can read it to you, no event shall a prisoner bring a civil action or appeal the judgment of civil action under this section if the prisoner has on 3 or more occasions while incarcerated or detained in any facility brought in action or appeal in a court of the United States that was dismissed on the grounds that it is frivolous, malicious, or fails to state a claim upon which relief may be granted, unless the prisoner is under imminent danger or serious physical injury. And this is Federal 28 U.S. Code 1915, Section G. I also gave a copy to Katie. In addition to this, I found case law, which I've given to Katie Rebenta, where for filing frivolous lawsuits at the state level, they can take away good time credit for inmates that are incarcerated. I know they could do it at the state level, but maybe we could do it at the county level as well.
As a sanction.
As a sanction for filing a frivolous lawsuit.
So if you're in and you file a lawsuit, a frivolous lawsuit, you would lose.
That's
your
correct.
good time.
Up to 180 days in the state of Illinois. So
Make you think twice about
that
it.
absolutely would be like, I don't want to do this. Like,
Would do more for it.
How about FOIAs on toilet paper? Can we add some time there?
Yeah.
That's FOIA.
Yeah, that's it.
and I mean, some of these lawsuits, they go against the judges and because they were upset with the way they ruled and, you know, it's just, there's no merit to a lot.
Has anyone, again, has this, I haven't heard this one before, has this been out in front, and you try, I mean, again, all of you, when you're sitting at the table, we all know that you belong to these associations, you know, the sheriff association with the state, and do you have, I mean, is this something that comes out in conversations, or is this?
I have not heard of it. So a lot of times we are mostly with the police chiefs, and most of our lawsuits come out of jail. And they don't have a county jail, so we wind up with a lot more work than the local police department.
Because they don't pay a fee for the service on all these people, so if they shoot 10 officers into jail along with the sheriff and the state's attorney and everybody else, those normally would be fees on all these because they're indigent, it's free. So all our deputies are out serving all these people for free.
You have to remember the municipalities are different than the sheriff because the municipalities do not do the service. The sheriff has to do the service on them. So when they get a lawsuit, they just get the lawsuit turned over to them.
So you're with chiefs, you're not necessarily, you guys don't belong to like a county sheriff?
We do belong to the Illinois Sheriff's Association, and I've advised everybody who spoke here today to make sure that we are speaking with them because we don't want to. They also propose legislation, and they have their own lobbyists out there, so
Right.
we want to make sure we're not going.
That's the biggest thing that we need. I know that makes your job so much easier, you know, to being coincide, make sure I'm not going, not that they would be against, but if you're pushing, you know, they're pushing that.
Well, the more support we get is going to go out and see what their lobbyists are.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Rhonda, did you have?
I just wanted to make sure if there were any questions.
Okay. Brent, did you have anything more to?
No,
Close
I think
with?
we, and obviously, if you're, as you're putting your agenda together, some of these things I'll explore. Some of them are not that hard, but I'll look into the rest of them and kind of get back to you.
Because the timeline would be as follows, and I did not realize we're going to have such an overwhelming amount of judges coming in and putting out. We're going to have, I think, a little thicker book come next year. So if our timeline would be as follows: for us to have the draft and for us to go as a committee next month to vote on, and then get it in front of the county board to have it as what our priorities are going to be for 2018. Okay? The new business? We have nothing for executive. Any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Move.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.